Thanks for coming. I'm a long-distance swimmer and visual artist living here in Dublin. My art practice explores place through swimming, and by that, by place I mean the physical space we swim through, but also the social space, kind of the communities around the bodies of water that I've swum through. My own first-hand experience of swimming are what starts all my art projects. I've been calling it psychoswimography, the word swim added to psychogeography, to kind of create a watery drifting and a reimagining of place. And the work exists in many different formats. I use a GoPro camera when I'm swimming, and I create drawings and films, animations, photographic images and from the GoPro footage. I make books as well. The books, I have some here, they're the size of the Dublin timetable, and they just have, for each project, has a little book about it. I used to do big paintings. These are wooden cutouts. These are layers of wood, plywood cut out, routed, painted. This is over 10 years ago. I've been doing that. And you can still see there's the swimming theme going on there. And I used to do large-scale kind of installations in different art centres around Ireland. I had about 6 different solo shows, all before 2011. So that was kind of a rough overview of my work. So, and I also, I come from a kind of carnival, community arts background, so big colour, paper mache, celebration are a big part of my work, and kind of still carry through today in my projects. And this is just my most current two paintings. So now I'm going to describe kind of, say, 5 projects quite quickly, just so you get a feeling how can it be a swimming art practice, I guess, and how does that exist. Most of the work is out on site at the body of water, or in the body of water I'm exploring at the time. So this What is a Lake was in UCD. I was very lucky to get the UCD Art and Science residency in 2016 or 15. And obviously the first thing that attracted me was this lovely lake that's just like a swimming pool. It even has like rails, steps like a swimming pool. So I did the first known solo crossing of it before I started the residency, kind of to bond with the place, which is what I tend to do wherever I work as well, try to immerse myself. And then the work existed as I would interview either scientists, architects, the guys who worked underneath with the plumbing and the waterworks, and I made a sound piece, a 5-minute sound piece that people could listen to. They'd book online and sit in this boat and be rowed around the lake listening to the sound piece. And that's a copy pod there, because I was very excited. I found copy pods in the lake. Everyone thought the lake was either really dirty, you get really horrible diseases if you fell in, or you get fined by the university if you jumped in. So I was thinking it needed a bit of celebration, and I was really glad to see all these little critters in there that did exist, which means it's not so bad after all. And part of the event, that day event, the Dublin Model Boat Club came and sailed their boats, and I had asked one of the students, a music student, to write a piece of music for the lake to celebrate it, and she had a 15-piece lake orchestra. They performed this music that evening. And 2 scientists gave talks, Carolyn Wynne and Jennifer Mitchell. So that's how the event existed as a work, and I created a book from it as well. So that's one project. Kind of you can see the multi facets that go into it. This is another project, the South Wall Swim. In 2016, I was lucky to get the Business to Arts Award, and I was really, I don't know if you know, but on the South Wall there's a swimming club, well, the swimmers here know, called the Half Moon, and I just found it quite fascinating, this old building on this wall, beautiful old harbour wall, which was still an active swimming club, but had a lot of history to it as well. So I managed to get permission from the harbour master, which was a work in itself, to swim down the Dockland side of the harbour wall, not the usual side, through all the industry, past the big boats. We did it as a relay with swimmers from the area, so I think there was 6 of us, I can't remember. I was doing the lock, so I wanted to film it. And also it was a way, because at the time in 2015-16 there was a lot of buildings going up very quickly, and I felt like it was changing quite rapidly, so to kind of film it from the water, because I love the way the GoPro does the half in, half out kind of images, so to create film work. And then after the swim we all arrived at, that's just on the journey, and the obligatory tea and cakes and kind of food after, and that's one of the clubhouses. And in the other clubhouse, I had an archive film from the IFI called The Moon Men, which is about the club in the 1960s, and it's a really nice film. So I had that projected on the wall and some photos. So that's another work. That's how, so you're getting the idea. There's always some sense of a journey, working with maybe local swimming clubs, swimmers, or anyone who's interested in that body of water, and kind of celebrating it and thinking about it in a different way. So this is going more towards my community arts kind of strand. This is in Sean McDermott Pool. I think 2018. I worked with some of the young swimmers who came there every week for their classes. We were thinking of this High Brazil. Have you heard of High Brazil? It's an island off the west coast of Ireland that appears every 7 years and then disappears. It's a magic island. So we thought about who would live there, what it would look like. And the group, the young people, they made a sound piece using a hydrophone. And I also interviewed Terry Fagan, who's a local historian who used to kind of jump off the bridges as a young person himself. And yeah, so we created, and then, and Aoife Drum, a synchronized swimmer, she choreographed a routine with them with their sculptures. And then Roisin from the Five Lamps Festival saw this and then asked me to do it again with a new group, different groups of young people. So we did it two times with more sculptures the second time and a different choreography, but similar format. So that was that. This other project is Lambay Swims, which is, in a way, it still is going on in my head, but it's, when I first moved to Dublin in 2011, I was asking, before I came up, where can I go swimming? And someone gave me a number of Fergal Somerville and said, he'll tell you. I said, we're meeting at High Rock in Malahide, and if you keep the sea to your left, you'll find us. But obviously he didn't even think about which direction I was coming from. So I was completely lost. But when I did find High Rock, this amazing swimming place, and Low Rock, you can see Lambay Island there. You probably all know Lambay Island. It's about 8 kilometres from Malahide, and it sits on the horizon, just like enough away to be a challenge, but kind of goading you. If you're a swimmer, it seems very achievable. And I wasn't even much of a swimmer then either. I just loved swimming. I didn't train. I wasn't long distance. So I was very lucky to get the Community and the Arts Award, Create at the time, to collaborate with the swimmers there from Low Rock, the daily swimmers who go there and swim every day. And we did a journey, kind of a shared journey, relay style again, to Lambay Island together. And it was, what I really liked about it, there was different people. We had about 10 in a team, and some of the people have been swimming at Low Rock for maybe 40, 50 years, and just the idea to turn back and see your swim vista from the opposite direction, and we had the seals surround us. But then the way we presented that to a wider public was a few months later we had like a promenade storytelling where some of the swimmers told some stories around the Lambay swim or their experience of Lambay Island at Low Rock. And then this was at 7 in the morning, and you can see Lambay in the distance there, just very achievable. And so we went for a kind of a sunrise dawn swim, and we had a breakfast barbecue with Lambay wallaby burgers I had ordered especially, cooked by a vegetarian Australian chef. So that was how that kind of wrapped up that project and existed, and I made a book of that as well. But then I got a taste for swimming the distance, so I started training, and then while I was at UCD and had use of their amazing pool, I decided to do a second swim to Lambay, a solo swim. But I noticed in the residency, a lot of our artists would go on the scientist expeditions and things, so I created my own expedition and invited the scientists to come on mine to kind of turn the tables around a bit. So I had 3 scientists on the trip, and they came on the journey while I swam solo. But the thing is with solo swimming, it's never solo. There's a whole team. So that's just, I will just skim off that one. And then the next year, I swam around the island, a circumnavigation. So that's me and the seals, Lambay seals, escorting me through their territory, making sure I didn't stay too long. And that's Tina Gates kayaking. Oops. So that was the 3 land-based swims. I called it the land-based swim trilogy in the end. And then I presented that work as Beyond Islands, an event in Skerries, and Skerries was an island originally. It has the causeway now, so I thought it was, and you can see Lambay from it, so I thought that was the perfect place to do an event about Lambay. So it was Beyond Islands, a journey by night. You could either walk or swim it. You got to choose as an audience member which you want to do. The Skerries Frosted helped me, the swimming group out there, and Swim Island. And I was one piece. I was fascinated by the story of the kingfish. Let me just get my notes because the dates, I don't get it wrong. The Islands. The kingfish. So basically, when you walked or you swam, you came across different things. It could be a film, it could be a projection, it could be a sculpture, it could be maybe someone reading a story or performing a story. And Ian Fleming, he read a text I adapted from The Natural History of Lambay, written by Robert Francis Scharf, who was part of the Prager expedition researching the flora and fauna of Lambay in 1907. But in Scharf's text, he described how the kingfish was found on the shores of Lambay, and apparently the same kingfish can still be seen in the Dublin's Natural History Museum, which I just really like that idea as well, of it's still existing, even though it's in the museum, it's very brown and solid looking. So that was just, and that's the kingfish. Someone made a lantern as a kingfish, which was on the Corach. That's the swimmers walking in to do their swim, and you could see, the swimmers could see the walkers, and the walkers, because they were like parallel, and then we all ended up at Springers, which is the swim area, and I had asked Ruth Clinton, who's a visual artist and a musician, and also a member of Landless, a four-piece harmony band. I don't know if you guys know them, they're amazing. But she wrote a song for this project. I'm going to play just a small bit of it now, and they sang that from the boat, and the swimmers kind of bobbed around in the water and listened, and then the guys who the walkers could hear it from Springers. So let's see. Sorry.
Last night as I lay in a world of a slumber, the voice of old recruit came soft through the air, saying your days in their splendor, not many in number, sail away to my shores and abandon all care, for I know what it is to hold on to past glory, and to struggle against the unstoppable tide. And I dimly remember my fire and fury, now silenced for good in the black water's tides. So build up the ramparts against uncharity, arm your heart to the cares of the world, cross o'er the sea to the old plain of victory, where mountains and rocks are with fishes and birds.
Okay, so it's a beautiful song. They're amazing band, Landless are. You should look them up after. So that's a very quick kind of overview of some of my projects before I go into the one I'm working on now, just to get a sense of how they just exist. It is like drifting, it's finding things, it's chance happenings, it's hearing a story and just chasing up and researching, and that's how it works. So this is me in 2019. I spent 12 hours in the English Channel trying to get to France. Didn't quite make it. The way the winds and the tides were that day were pushing me towards the Calais approaches where swimmers aren't allowed to go. So my boat pilot pulled it. I didn't want to stop. I knew I was heading a long swim. I didn't mind, but I wasn't allowed to go, so I had to stop. But all the time I was training for the English Channel, which was quite many years, I was thinking about how this, obviously it's a completely contentious body of water, how could I create an artwork out of it? While I was doing my research, I came across this book, In the Wake of Mercedes Gleitze, by her Mercedes' daughter, Doloranda Pemba. And Mercedes Gleitze was a pioneer, one of a group of pioneer swimmers in the 20s and 30s, these amazing women who just were doing great swims for the first time, really. And she was the first English woman to swim the English Channel in 1927. But she also did many other epic swims around the world eventually, and she became quite a celebrity. And the story, I just kind of fell in love with the story and with her as well, and just kind of the tenacity and the bravery of it all. And also one thing I really liked about her and other swimmers of the day, they would often have music when they were swimming these channels. There's like a beautiful photo of her on a rowing boat with a gramophone player, or she could ask people to ask people to sing to her. She'd be requesting songs, so people on the boats. But she'd also have hundreds of people, thousands of people would actually flock to see her either finish a swim, start a swim, or she did the endurance swims, which are swimming around in a swimming pool. I'll come onto that in a while. So it's just you can see all the people in the boat. So she'd be asking for them to sing songs. I have the gramophone picture later on in the presentation. And that's a crowd of people waiting outside a swimming pool to watch her do an endurance swim. But it looks like a concert or something. It's like a big crowd. I like that photo. So when I read the book, I was thinking, and also a chance meeting again with a curator called Rosie Hermon, who came to visit me when I was in Temple Bar Gallery for the year. And we had a chat. This was 2017. And she had done some projects around the English Channel area, Deep Haven Festival. So then when I swam the channel, I said, would you still like to work on a project? And then she said, yes. So we work with partners in this, really. It's great. And we've called the project Swimming a Long Way Together. And it's inspired by Mercedes, but it is a celebration of swimming and swimming communities. And the project has kind of shadowed where Mercedes Gleitze has done particular swims. We've reimagined her swims as a kind of an art event, an art project. I'm still working on it now, but I'm going to explain the projects we've done so far around Ireland. So I was very fortunate to get the Open Call Award in 2020, I think it was. It took a couple of years to get. It was quite a process, but anyway, we got that, which meant the project could exist. And the idea was we were going to do an event in Dublin, Cork, Galway, and Donaghadee the North, kind of the 4 bodies of water around Ireland, and each one thinking about Mercedes Gleitze. So this was also during kind of COVID times and strange lockdowns and different rules changing every other week, what you could do and what you couldn't do. So we launched it in August 2021 it was, and you weren't allowed to create an event at that stage, but we were allowed to do something. I was the Dublin Swimming Club, they worked with me on this, and they were brilliant to help me get the permissions to go up the River Liffey and create kind of a launch event. So the idea was a group of swimmers swam up the River Liffey one evening, rush hour traffic kind of time, and there's a boat there, you can see at the back, and that has Landless, the band you just heard at the last project, on the boat. And yes, because of the musical reference from Mercedes, I also asked Ruth to write another song for this project. So she wrote As Easy Stop the Sea about, and it's I can read her sentence here because she says it better than I can. Sorry. The song follows a swimmer on a long-distance journey through the water as they learn about community, patience, and tenacity from the non-human inhabitants with whom they share the sea and sky. Incorporating snippets of Ulysses, as well as some of Gleitze's favourite songs, the song is a polyvocal reminder to respect the sea and to cherish the communities it sustains. And it's 9 minutes long. It's a very long song because it's about long-distance swimming, so that'd only be right. And she did a lot of research and talked to me and different swimmers, and it's a beautiful song. And Temple Bar Gallery were very good. They let us use their balcony to film this from above, and also they hosted a few people to, again, you couldn't have too many people, so we had a few people on the balcony. But as we went up the streets, lots of passers-by did see us, including like 40 young people who were on the Bachelor's Walk having a party or whatever, and they quite enjoyed it too. This boat going by with the music and the swimmers. That was just the launch. And Aoife for Drum, we did a synchronised swimming routine outside Temple Bar when we got to as far as that. We swam from the Customs House up to Temple Bar, but then the current was really hard going back, but that's always the way. This is just the chorus of the song, And it's inspired by one of Mercedes' favourite songs was It's a Long Way to Tipperary, so you'll definitely hear that reference.
It's a long way to go, a long way to go. It's a long way to go, a long way.
Okay, so then the following day after the launch on the River Liffey, we the first event was that's Mercedes. That was the a swimposium. A swimposium, I guess, is something I've always wanted to do anyway, but it seemed to fit this event perfectly for the kind of starting point. And it was the day. It was a durational event really for the people who came along. It started off with the breakfast swim here with Rosie Hermon, who's a very famous swimmer and surfer, giving a kind of a workshop before we went in for the swim. Then we provided food for everyone, and then there was morning talks which were thinking about Mercedes Gleitze, swimming and culture, with the panelists. Had Philip Hoare, Carrie Fury chaired it. She's from the Outdoor Swimming Society in England. There's 3 long distance swimmers there. Also Anne-Marie Malahi, she's doing her PhD on 20th century swimmers. Rosie Foley, she actually plays international rugby and has swum the Channel. And Lisa Cummins, she swum the Channel there and back as her first long distance swim. So they all spoke in the first panel. And then as the day went on, we had a second swim and lunch at Sea Point. And then on the way to that, people could listen to the poetry that had been written for the event on their headphones, because the writer, he was an American, he couldn't come because of COVID. COVID seemed to wreck a lot of things. And then people would then make their way to the Clontarf Baths for the afternoon presentation, and then another swim, and then the final thing was at Bulwall Island with the performance of the song and poems and curry, because you always have to eat when you're swimming. Food is a very important part of the work, though I don't cook. So this is going to be a snippet of Philip Hoare wrote this for the just a couple of minutes.
Why do we swim? Down to the end of the pier, off the beach, on the riverbank, at the end of the world, where all the laws run out. All the hierarchies, constrictions, and the debts. All the identities, and the gravity, and the wanting, and the yearning to be set free. Of the way we want to be, or once we were. Like Ishmael's water gazers at the tip of Manhattan in Moby Dick, we look into the water and see reflections of ourselves, our souls in the sea. Ourselves perfectly ironed out and weightless, set free. Everyone is beautiful in the sea. Where did they come from, these watery people? And where are they going to?
Okay, so that's the afternoon speakers there, and that was more on swimming and well-being and health. So that was the panel there. We had Ronan Foley, who's at Maynooth, a health geographer, Hannah Denton from Brighton, who Eski Britain again, and Carrie Fury presenting it. And what happened just before their talk was an absolute biblical downpour of rain and lightning. And we had it so that people would sit around the pool in 2-meter gaps, because it was still those COVID days. And we couldn't even get the speakers out of the van. It was just too wet. Even the atmosphere was ridiculous. And the production manager was saying, we can't carry on. And the swimmers going, yeah, we can. So what we did, we kind of improvised a bit, and we did it acoustically, because we couldn't get the electric stuff out, and luckily we had one lapel mic which recorded the talk, so they exist as a YouTube, and people just kind of gathered round. Well, we were fine, it's open air. And people could choose where they sat, but that's what we did. So it just became a bit more intimate. And that was that talk. And this is just the poem that Steve Mentz, he's a professor in New York. I've worked with him on many different projects, actually, including the Santa Barbara one at the beginning of the talk. And I've illustrated his book, Ocean. I have a copy here. And so this is one of the poems you can listen to on the day. It's very short.
To be together, immersed in wetness, in splashing arms in rotation. To catch the water, cut and hold, to pull endless flowing the sea backwards and meet to match, leaping forward, through, past, and into the deep blue. Free, I in the wonder world circumperegrinate to rendezvous inside the world sea. Light bender, dream warp. You are here inside too, swimming with me for a long way. Can't see where we are going. Arms turn circles and hands cup the salt sea, emptiness around, flowing, unknown. To school like fish and silver nails are bred, from each day's dawning straight on to the night.
Okay. Okay, and then that was the Landers performing at the Scouts hut there down at Bullwall, singing the song, and then we had the curry on the beach. So that was the first Swimming a Long Way Together event, the symposium, and yeah, done during COVID restrictions. Each event has crazy logistics. So the second one was Cork, and in 1930, Mercedes Gleitze did a 30-hour endurance swim at the Eglinton Street Baths in Cork. This bath doesn't exist anymore, it's a corporation pool. And she, like I said before, she swims around the pool, and the idea is you don't touch the sides or stand, you have to keep swimming. But because she was a celebrity at the time, thousands came to watch her. Those tickets were sold, people come and watch her. She would read the newspaper, she would sign autographs, she would ask people to sing to her on the pool deck, there'd be performance, it'd be quite a spectacle in its own right, and to keep her going as well. So I thought, oh, I'd love to kind of do something with that. So we reimagined that in Cork. Eglinton Bath wasn't there, and again, this is lockdown, the pools weren't even open. I found it really hard to find a pool, but I did find a pool, which is a miracle. I do Google Maps, and I just scan the area for bits of water, whatever, and I'm Googling, and I found Middleton College, a school in Middleton, had a pool. I emailed the headmaster, Edward. I did have one mutual friend who knew the school, but I said, look, I'm looking to use a pool for 30 hours. Could we use your pool? And he said, yeah. So that's kind of amazing. Sometimes you just have a look like that. And it was great. I moved to Cork for the month. I did like workshops with the students. We made the lanterns that decorate the pool at night, the big paper mache gramophone in the middle of the pool, which survived rain and wind for the 30 hours. I give artist talks in the school. So the school students were quite involved with the work as well. And for the day, what happened was, so for 30 hours, each hour we had a different performer. We had an open call, so if you were a storyteller, a DJ, a dancer, as long as you could perform safely in that small stage area, it was yours, and you got a fee. We paid everybody. And then the swimmers, we wanted to keep the continual swimming going round. No one's going to swim for 30 hours. The whole point of this is it's a community effort, it's not for one person. So people would book in a time slot to swim. But because it was a boarding school, at night we had about 6 or 7 hours where it was just people, I know, like long distance channel swimmers who maybe do 2-3 hours, because we didn't want to have just general public walking around the school, because it might be a bit not great. So, but the school was so accommodating, and it's still, although it was ridiculously hard work, 30-hour gig, it was quite long. And that's the program we had and the school students had the first hour, the music teacher, I like that because it's just the maths, that's the times we're in. For the first hour, they had like students doing like 5-10 minute performances themselves, and the students swam around before we kind of opened it up to the public to kind of book. So they got, before they left school, we started at 3 p.m, so they got, before they went home. That's just a drone picture. That's a dancing group. And that's a school still, actually. That's sound artist Danny McCarthy from Cork. He did a set in the middle of the night with the rain coming down. We had someone who read the newspaper and been like, because Mercedes Gleitze would have a newspaper, but he printed out the newspaper of 1930 in Cork, so he read that. And, it's all different things. That's like an 8-piece funk band. You got the fee for the time, not the amount of people, so they wouldn't have come away with much money. A storyteller, and I think, and then there's Ruth again. Sometimes we can't get the full land. This is 4 of them in it. So Ruth came down with Cormac and they performed the song at the end, and that was the last thing. Then we all jumped in the pool, which is the best bit. And then, so that was the second event of Swimming a Long Way Together. How are we doing? Okay. And then the third event was in Donaghadee, which is the north of Ireland. In 1928 and 1929, Mercedes Gleitze attempted to swim the North Channel 8 times, which in itself is kind of amazing. Like today, if you try a big swim, you don't normally try it 8 times in one season. You might have a second go at it. And also, Mercedes was working in Blackpool, doing kind of performative swims there. So there was no Ryanair, she couldn't just jump on, she'd get the call, there might be a weather window, make her way all the way over to Ireland to try to swim this ridiculously hard channel that still is, in marathon swimming, the hardest channel you can probably swim because it's cold, you have the lion's mane jellies, and it's just, the currents are crazy. So, but see this photo here, that's the crowd of people, you see that everyone watching her set off, isn't that amazing? That's at Robbie's Point in Donaghadee, and that's still the starting place where swimmers today would set off. And it's the most horrific because you jump off these days they jump off the boat, swim through all those rocks to start a swim. It's not a great starting point, but anyway, she just waded in there to set up. I don't know which one that was. And so what I loved about this project, I love meeting people who have had some connection through their family with Mercedes. I'm always trying to find those little hidden stories that aren't the ones. So I met Jean Roberts, whose grandfather, William Roberts, was the pilot of the Kathleen, which was a motor cruiser that took her on most of her swims across. And this is from her photo album, family photo album. She had some other photos, and she was great. And I kind of interviewed her for a sound piece, and she also got her cousin to talk about his dad. So I created a sound work from chatting to them and from other swimmers. These are one of 2 huts at Robbie's Point. Mercedes might change in them, she might not have, it doesn't matter. And I painted murals all the way around 4 sides and had a sound piece, 2 different sound pieces in each one. So for the event, so the Donaghadee work existed as a day where there was 8 events in homage to her 8 attempts, 8 little things that went on through the day. So it was, again, like a journey, I guess. And so then we had asked the Donaghadee Ladies Choir to sing some sea shanties and watery songs by the pier. There's one. And then this is, I'm going to play a little bit of the film. God, there's lots to talk on this one. Am I talking too fast? So this is a boat called the Mercedes. It's an old ruin of a boat, but this boat was part of the flotilla in 1928 that actually accompanied Mercedes. And it's the first tangible thing I've seen in Mercedes, that I could touch, was actually there. And it's on the shores of Strangford Lough, just with the greenery growing out of it. It's very beautiful. And Strangford Lough has all these beautiful birds, wading birds singing, and you can hear the airplanes from Belfast Airport. And it was too small to bring an audience to, so how can I use this boat? It's so beautiful. So I made a film, created a film, projected it onto the boat, and then that filmed that, and then the room that Mercedes Gleitze stayed in the hotel when she was there, I back projected my film there. It's a lot of, if that makes sense to anyone. So and the film is Dolaranda Pember is Mercedes' daughter. She's reading an interview Mercedes gave about her North Channel attempts, you'll hear the birds.
This channel, it is true, is notoriously rough, and the currents are obviously very strong. But these difficulties are not such that they cannot be overcome. The greatest enemy, in my estimation, is the cold, and I'm hoping that on my next attempt to conquer the Irish Channel, I shall be able to overcome this adversity and successfully complete my task. I have often wondered why it is that once there are thousands of excellent swimmers in the sporting world, there are comparatively few who have the necessary stamina, strength and endurance to take up long-distance swimming. Apart from the ability to swim, I think the main essentials are a strong heart, good lungs, and generally a strong and healthy constitution. Another important factor is willpower. The will to endure the cold, to put up with the discomfort of choppy waves, to ignore the sting of jellyfish, to be disconcerted at the nearness of porpoises, dolphins, and even sharks, to bear the pain of aching shoulder, knee, and shin muscles, to remain floating in the water with your arm or leg seized with cramp, and yet continue to swim?
So, and the reason, so through this whole process, which seems to be many years now, I've become really good friends with Doloranda. She'd be in her late 80s now, and I was meant to meet her before the project started, but lockdown, couldn't go visit her. So we emailed loads, then we started writing letters, cause just to change it from email, so it's something more tangible. And then I finally got to visit her last October, and she showed me her archive of Mercedes books, where all the letters she'd written, she had carbon copied them all and kept a copy of all her correspondences and sewed them into the old Woolworths books. She has like a drawer full of just all this stuff. She has a third of the archive. Her brother has the other third, and yeah, the other third is, anyway. So then Donaghadee, you can see the black, that's the hotel room there where Mercedes was famously waving out of. There's a lovely photo of her waving out of that window. So I asked 8 local swimmers who's from there to perform a small intervention. And when I was working out what to do, I heard this bagpiper on the wall, and I went over and there's a female bagpiper. Well, that's great, because I didn't think there'd be females so often. And Deborah, and I says, would you perform? She says, yeah. So she bagpiped a Mercedes from the pub. They went down the stairs and swam across the harbour. Then the next one came, so eventually there was 8 Mercedes, one at a time, walked across to enter the water and swim across the bay, and that's them at the end. There's also Anna Maria Malaki giving a talk, Jane Wright from the Donaghadee Historical Society giving a talk, and then Maeve and Ruth from Landless, and Cormac and Helen performing the song at the end. And there's the last Mercedes coming in the harbour. And then this is a quick animation we had on the Ardson Down Borough Council really helped us, and they got us a projector and technician like in kind, which is amazing. We had no funding for this event because it was the north and it wasn't part of the open call. So it was real. I did a crowdfunder, which is still the bane of my life. I'm still trying to get the rewards out to people. Don't ever do a crowdfunder, is all I can say. That's it. Okay. So the last Irish Swimming a Long Way Together event is in Galway, where in 1931, Mercedes swam from the Aran Islands for 19 hours. She was meant to land in Galway and Spiddle, and again, hundreds and thousands had come to watch her come in, but she stopped in Spiddle, which is 20 kilometres away. So they were a little bit like, disappointed they didn't get to see Mercedes finish her swim. So the next day, she did a demonstration swim at Blackrock, between Blackrock and Ladies Beach, where she just do different strokes and probably sign autographs and, just try to make amends for not coming all the way in. But it's still a historic swim, epic 19-hour swim, and Nona Dunn. So I wanted to create a swim parade, swim procession, and the Atlantic Masters and the local swimmers got involved. This is the beginning of it, where the ad hoc choir were warming them up with songs. Then the idea was, but what the weather did, the idea was the swimmers would swim parallel to the prom, and Ruth Clinton would play the pump organ on the prom, and they'd go together. But it was so windy and so stormy, we couldn't swim that point to point, and it downpoured us before us. We had to wrap the organ in plastic, like a Christo sculpture. But what we did was swimmers walked behind the organ, and then we swam a very small bit in a sheltered bit. We got us a mini swim parade in, and it was crazy weather. It looks great there, but it really was wild. And then I commissioned a local poet to write. She wrote a poem from a child's point of view who had been at Mercedes' demonstration swim, and this beautiful poem. And then a swimmer, Laurie Lee Link, she choreographed a performance. We also had Big Jelly, an 8-piece ska band playing on the beach to kind of welcome the swimmers in. And then Landless, I got them costumes this time. I was very excited. And they sang the song at the end again. So that was the Irish Open Call Award. And now I then got some heritage funding to take this to Brighton, where Mercedes was born and grew up and learned to swim in the sea. This is that amazing photo. You can behind the guy waving is a record player, gramophone player. That's her in the English Channel, taken by an aeroplane, not a drone, because it was the 20s. And so this is kind of the ending. Well, there's a few photos, but so I had an exhibition in Brighton. It'd be my first gallery show in probably over 10 years, because all my work's been, as you've noticed, not in a gallery. And I was very nervous, like, how on earth do I have a gallery show Like, how can you bring the swimming into the gallery, so to speak? But I really trusted Fabrica, the team there, to create. And I'm going to show some photos of the installation in a minute. But the main piece was a film work, a kind of performance to camera, I guess you could call it. So there's Ruth, and there's the pump organ we bought for the project from Dundee. And we decided, in long distance swimming, a marathon swim is 10 kilometres and above. So I thought that's a good benchmark. I said to Ruth, we've been thinking about the pump organ, the feet, the kind of momentum of the feet, the breathing of the reeds, and comparing it to a swimmer. And so that's what the idea of the pump organ, and obviously a reference to Mercedes and the music she'd have on board. So I said, I'll swim a marathon swim, and you play the organ. So and normally that would take me 4 hours to do 10K. So Ruth is a bit like, oh gosh, I've got to play the organ for 4 hours. But because I timed the tide so well, and the wind was behind us, I did it 2 hours 20. That's not my speed, that's just luck. But it meant that Ruth didn't have to play the organ for the song. But on the downside, it meant that my filmmaker, Barry, didn't have so long to catch footage, and also it was so windy, he was like holding, I don't know how his camera survived. It was all a bit crazy. I was too busy swimming, I didn't know what was going on in the boat, but I came back to stories. So Fabrica is an old church building, and I'm so glad I listened to their ideas, because I couldn't have asked for a better way to. They basically masked off 2/3 of the church, this big wall here. So behind there was a cinema screen. It was 7 meters across, 2 screens, 3 meters each, 3.5 meters. And this was, because it was heritage funding, this was a research area. So we had stuff from Pathé, they had the license, and from the Brighton Swimming Club, which is the oldest swimming club in England. My Mercedes film, we've got a load of books on swimming, and this is an area where people come and read about swimming, listen to sound pieces, and then they go in around that wall, and that will be my installation there of the film. It's a 15-minute film, and it plays in a loop, so it doesn't really matter when you go into it, just the idea of when you're long distance swimming, the endlessness of it. And the script is, I interviewed 25 channel swimmers, international channel swimmers from literally all over the world, from Australia, Europe, America, everywhere, who I'd met through my swims. And I then created a script that Maeve, the voice you can hear, read. So it's like one voice, but many voices. I think this is probably near the, what slide's that? Yeah, so I'm going to play just a minute of the film. I'm hoping it will be playing in Dublin maybe next autumn. Still being.
I wonder if I could.
Public Coast Guard is Pulpit. We're just off right here, then we're just on the swimmer right back down to Sorrento. So we give you a call when it's out of the water. When the swimmer's out of the water. How many swimmers are coming over? You know, we'll be up on the there's only one, that's all. Roger, that's all. I'll be there. Coast Guard ready.
We are all testing our ability when we go into the open water and do the long swims. We are seeing if we can go the distance. We are seeing if we can maintain our minds. We are seeing if we can reach beyond what we have done. But we are also encountering new things that we're trying to figure out. Can we figure a way through them? I feel at home in the ocean. There's a huge transition from when I'm on land and feeling gravity and moving through my life to stepping off the shore and into the water, suddenly being buoyant, feeling so weightless. You don't feel the air when you're on land, but you can feel the water around you. You might feel what's in the water, you feel the cold of it, the sensation of it. There's a soothing quality when you're enveloped by cool, silky water. When I swim, I think a lot. It's a kind of multiple voice that I have in my head. One says, okay, swim, swim. Don't think about the cold, don't think about sharks, don't think about waves, just swim. Another voice starts to sing, la 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 la, here comes the sun. One that says, try to swim better. Another counts, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's a kind of chorus of voices that are discussing, arguing, talking about me, telling me everything. But in this way, I arrive.
Yeah, so that's a snippet of it, the 15-minute film, and that was exhibited and hopefully will be in Dublin Monday. So I'm currently working in Dover. I fly back this afternoon actually to work on the UK, another Swimming Along Way Together event. Obviously, the Dover is the starting point of many channel swims, so I'm doing an event there on July 29th, working with the Future Foundry, an art group there, and the swimmers on Dover Beach, the channel swimmers who are training, and the local swimming groups. And then we will also be in Brighton for the final UK event. October, we're going to do a 47-hour endurance swim because Mercedes, obviously she's from Brighton, and she did a 47-hour endurance swim in Worthing Bath. It was the last one in 1932. I should be able to remember that. And Worthing Bath doesn't exist anymore. There's a new pool that's just been built called Sea Lanes. It's outside by the sea. So it wasn't built last year. We were meant to do this last year with the exhibition. The pool is finally built and open, so we're doing it this year. It'll be different to the Cork one because it's a different pool, different stage area, and we have 47 hours as opposed to 30. So I'm sure it'll be a different kind of event. So that's kind of what I'm working on. And then maybe there's talk of going to France. And also my friend Jamie Monaghan, she's a very good swimmer. She's swam around Manhattan 4 times in one go, like 50-hour swimmer. And she's amazing. She's just moved to Australia, so she says she's happy to research Mercedes swims in Australia. So Swimming Along Way Together, maybe it will never be over, but kind of this year I'm going to make the publication and the film that Barry Lynch has been filming for us that will exist for next year, hopefully.